The search is on for the cause of Argentina's worst air disaster. Violence continues in East Timor following the independence referendum. And prescription Ritalin. Are some Americans over-medicating their children? From CNN in Washington, this is WorldView. I'm Bernard Shaw. Judy Woodruff is off. We begin in the Middle East, where the Israelis and Palestinians appear ever so close to reviving that Wye River Accord. Officials on both sides huddled hour after hour Wednesday in a bid to overcome last-minute snags on the interim deal. The goal, a one-year deadline for ending decades of hostility. Officials are racing against the clock to reach agreement hours before U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright arrives in the region. CNN's Gerald Kessel is in Jerusalem with the very latest on the talks. Gerald?
Bernie, ever so close to reaching that agreement, and I'm afraid it seems as if they're losing that race against the clock, at least the way that's being projected to us after a 4-hour meeting of the Israeli Security Cabinet here in Jerusalem this evening, which ended about a half an hour ago. And what we have from it is Israeli sources telling us that Prime Minister Ehud Barak ended that meeting on a very downbeat note and a very pessimistic approach. He said it seems that his concluding words of that lengthy cabinet meeting, according to the Israeli sources, it looks like the Palestinians are opting for the old Wye agreement, not for the revised Wye agreement, which we've been negotiating. That was Ehud Barak summing up this day-long, more than 24 hours of negotiations, which have gone to and fro from skepticism to pessimism to optimism to hope, and now very much back to pessimism that there will be, and whether there will be an agreement that can be signed in Cairo tomorrow. When we put that to the Israeli sources, that if the Israelis were, as they put it, giving the Palestinians another 2 or 3 days to come up with a better argument and better responses to their questions on how to bridge the gaps on the remaining issues, particularly the number of Palestinian security prisoners that should be released. The response from the Israeli sources was, yes, I think there won't be a signing ceremony in Alexandria tomorrow. That's the latest word from here in Jerusalem, a pessimistic overview after the Israeli Security Cabinet met, and no further meetings planned. There were meetings planned late this evening. These have now not taken place, and there are none as yet scheduled tomorrow. That doesn't mean they won't take place, but as of this moment, it seems as if they have not bridged the differences, and there will be no signing ceremony in Alexandria tomorrow. That's the latest from here in Jerusalem. Bernie?
Gerald, with that breaking news development, is this an embarrassing setback for U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright?
It's certainly a major complication. The Americans had taken the approach that they didn't want Mrs. Albright to come here and to try to mend the fences and to bridge the gaps on this issue of implementing the long unfulfilled Wye River Accord. She wanted to come here with the accord, a done deal on how to implement it so that she could go on to the broader issues of how to push the Middle East peace process forward in a big way, both on the Syrian-Israeli track and to step up gear of the Palestinian-Israeli peace process to push it towards the final status negotiations. Okay. Now it appears Mrs. Albright might have to deal with this very issue that she tried to avoid, the issue of implementing the Wye River Accord. It is a problem for the Americans as they come into the arena again. Bernie?
Gerald Kessel with the very latest from Jerusalem. Thanks very much. Now to South America. A search for bodies and clues is underway in Argentina, a day after the fiery crash of an Argentine jetliner. At least 64 people were killed. CNN's Harris Whitback reports.
Anxious relatives crowded a Buenos Aires hospital waiting for news of those who were on the Lapa Airlines Boeing 737. At the crash site nearby, emergency workers continued looking for bodies among the pieces of broken fuselage that were scattered around a golf driving range. The plane, which several witnesses said appeared to lose an engine as it was taking off from the Buenos Aires domestic airport Tuesday night, overshot a runway and plowed through cars and trucks on a busy highway. This taxi driver was close enough to see it happen. The plane flew low over a fence, he says. It crashed into the golf course and exploded in flames. The Argentine Minister of the Interior said the crash is one of the most tragic in the history of Argentine aviation. An investigation has already been launched to find out why the 737 failed to take off. The effects of the crash were exacerbated because it happened at an airport that sits right in the middle of Buenos Aires. Politicians have renewed calls for the airport to be moved to another location. This senator says that common sense indicates that the airport should be moved away from populated areas. Meanwhile, aviation authorities concentrate on trying to find out what happened. Airline officials have not wanted to speculate on the causes of the accident. They have, however, retrieved the cockpit voice recorder or black box and have started analyzing the information contained in that device. We also have information that officials from the Boeing aircraft company are on their way or in Buenos Aires and will be on the scene to conduct their own investigation into this accident. Reporting live from Buenos Aires, this is Harris Whitbeck, CNN.
A charter plane carrying 12 people crashed on a mountain slope in Tanzania during bad weather Wednesday. The plane was flying from a national park to an airport near Mount Kilimanjaro. 10 American tourists were aboard, among those aboard, and there is no official word on survivors. There was word Wednesday of an incident of air rage in the skies over Canada. An unruly passenger forced a Canadian jetliner to make an emergency landing on Sunday after getting into an argument with the passengers and crew. It happened over Manitoba province. The plane with 340 passengers on board was on a flight from Calgary to Amsterdam. The Dutch passenger charged in the incident faces a maximum sentence of life in prison. In Canada, hundreds of relatives gathered in Nova Scotia Wednesday for a somber remembrance of the crash of Swissair Flight 111. They were joined by rescue crews who had searched in vain for survivors. Ceremonies included burials of some unidentified remains. All 229 people on board the jetliner were killed when it crashed off Nova Scotia last year. The cause still not known. United Nations Secretary General Kofi Annan is warning Indonesian authorities to rein in armed militias in East Timor following the worst outbreak of violence since Monday's referendum on self-rule. Here's CNN Jakarta Bureau Chief Maria Ressa.
It's the warning sign, telling people an attack is coming. Many fled to this school near the UN headquarters, most from a nearby pro-independence neighborhood attacked earlier by pro-Indonesian militia. They started shooting and burning houses, says this woman. Another said, "We're afraid to die, that's why we ran here." Then the militia came. Pro-independence supporters shouted insults, this man yelling, "If you're really brave, put down your guns." Another dropped his pants, taunting the armed militiamen. Then the clash. Two armed militia groups joined forces against the pro-independence men. Journalists became targets. Shooting for nearly an hour. That pushed about 200 refugees and journalists into the UN headquarters. Soldiers in the military station nearby shut the gates. "No photos or I will beat you," one yells. After more than an hour, the police finally came. At least one man, a pro-independence supporter, was killed, allegedly shot by soldiers. As this week has shown, not even UN workers are safe. One staff member was killed Monday, 2 others are missing. This latest violence came as counting of the ballots from Monday's historic vote began. Nearly 99% of registered voters cast ballots in the referendum, but now the pro-Indonesian group claims the vote wasn't fair. East Timor has long been caught in a cycle of violence, neighborhood gang wars fueled by very real political issues. Still, now that the ballot count is underway, there are questions of whether or not the results will be accepted by both sides. Maria Ressa, CNN, Dili, East Timor.
The mayor of Moscow says those who set off a bomb near the Kremlin should be shot. Police have stepped up security one day after Tuesday's blast in a shopping mall. Officials are investigating a little-known anti-consumer group that claim responsibility, but they have not ruled out organized crime or political motives. The mall was crowded with shoppers when the blast occurred, injuring at least 41 people. Moscow issued a strong response Wednesday to reports linking Russian mobsters and senior government officials to a multi-billion-dollar money laundering scheme. CNN's Steve Harrigan has more.
It's not just Russian mobsters who are named in media reports about a possible multi-billion-dollar money laundering scandal, but key figures around Boris Yeltsin, some of the so-called young reformers.
Any reports about foreign bank accounts belonging to me or my relatives are lies. It's simply not true.
The head of Russia's central bank says no loans from the International Monetary Fund were misused. And in its first official reaction, the Kremlin says the corruption allegations are an attempt to smear Russia.
This is the policy of certain circles which do not want our country to assert its role as a great world power, which do not want Russia to overcome the problems we face today.
So far, a story that's front-page news in the West has largely been ignored by the Russian media. The reason, some analysts say, is a gap in how Russia's politicians are perceived at home and abroad.
The information about the corruption in the Russian government was not widely spread in the West media. There was still a feeling there that there are good Democrats and bad communists, which does not really accurately describe the situation inside Russia, because those who were regarded as the Democrats in the West were regarded as crooks, mostly here in Russia.
There are other reasons for the lukewarm response to the scandal at home. First, exactly what money laundering is not widely understood among a population where few have bank accounts.
I keep my money in the kitchen, under a dish.
Others are simply tired of hearing about corruption in high places.
I try not to think about it. You sleep better if you don't.
Steve Harrigan, CNN, Moscow.
Clinton administration officials say the United States is all but certain to support the next installment of International Monetary Fund loans to Russia. They say there's no evidence IMF funds were part of the money laundering charges. A group of professional baseball umpires is mounting a last-ditch effort to save their jobs. Negotiations between baseball owners and umpires continue under the supervision of a federal judge in Philadelphia. 22 major league officials are set to be dismissed Thursday. The action stems from a failed mass resignation strategy to protest the league's evaluation process. Now let's find out what's ahead on the Moneyline News Hour at the bottom of the hour. Here are Stuart Varney and Willow Bay with a preview.
Coming up on the Moneyline News Hour, a welcome rally for blue chip stocks. Question, is this a temporary bounce or the start of something lasting?
Car buyers push the pedal to the metal as they go on a showroom splurge, while U.S. automakers are on track to break new sales records this year.
Plus, he was a bear with the Dow at 4,000. He growled when it hit 9,000. So why is Michael Metz still saying the market's overvalued? We'll talk with him about being a bear in a bull's world.
Now back to Bernie and WorldView.
Thank you, Willow. Stuart. Ahead on WorldView, no rest for firefighters in the western United States. We'll have a live report.
Chapo, you suck!
I can always tell when I'm in New York.
You are like the ultimate guy.
On September 17th.
Don't smile at me, Davis. I hate that.
You've got to beat the best.
You're in the zone.
To be the best. For love of the game. Rated PG-13. Starts Friday, September 17th at theaters everywhere.
Today, Nortel Networks is changing the way businesses communicate.
Here come old Flat Top. He come grooving up slowly. He got juju eyeball. He's saying, I know you. You know me. One thing I can tell you is you've got to be free. Come together.
Bringing it all together with the true power of the internet.
Come together.
Nortel Networks.
Right now.
How the world shares ideas.
Over me.
Xerox uses the internet to share knowledge through documents. BarnesandNoble.com uses it to share literary ideas. The Hawaii Visitors and Convention Bureau uses it to share a little piece of paradise. They all share the same internet service provider, PSINet. For thousands of businesses worldwide, the internet starts here.
Ditech.com puts extra cash in your pocket with their new 125% second mortgage with 0 points.
Use our second mortgage to consolidate bills.
Pay college tuition. Give your daughter that wedding she's always wanted.
A 125% loan means you can borrow more than the value of your home. And 0 points means you'll save a lot of money on closing costs.
That's up to $150,000 in your pocket.
Log on to ditech.com or call 1-800-71-FIXED.
United States President Bill Clinton has declared a disaster area in California where wildfires have ravaged acres of brush and forest. More than 10,000 firefighters are tackling seasonal blazes in Idaho, Montana, Nevada, Utah, as well as California. Firefighters hope cooler weather can help them get the fires under control. Let's go to San Bernardino County in Southern California for more with Jim Hill. Jim?
Well, Bernie, I'm in the small resort town of Fawnskin in the San Bernardino Mountains. As you can see behind me, it's literally in the shadow of the big fire here. That fire is actually miles away and not burning toward the town. However, firefighters are handing out detailed maps and written updates to residents here to keep them posted, and they are, of course, very nervous. Now, there are 2,300 firefighters battling this fire, along with 24 aircraft. That includes the water-dropping helicopters that actually get their water out of the lake near Fawnskin. And also nearly 20 air tankers dropping the fire-retardant chemicals on the blaze. Now, this fire has raced over 53,000 acres so far since it started on Saturday. The toll at this point is some 30 structures burned. A dozen of those were told. About 12 are believed to have been homes, but it's not always easy to tell when you look at the ruins in every case. Now, this is the biggest fire working in Southern California, and although firefighters are very, very busy, as you point out, in other states, firefighters say this particular blaze is their #1 priority, though they can give no estimate now on when it might be contained or controlled. I'm Jim Hill reporting live from Fawnskin, California.
Thank you, Jim. The coast was anything but clear along North Carolina's Outer Banks Wednesday. Once a hurricane, now a tropical storm with 60-mile-an-hour winds, Dennis returned to Hatteras Island, cutting it in half, with 14-foot waves and stranding some 5,000 people who defied orders to evacuate. The storm is drifting west at 5 miles an hour, about 100 miles from Cape Hatteras. Forecasters are saying this storm will probably linger off the coast for days, putting a damper on the start of the Labor Day weekend. Rough surf and riptides from Dennis has closed beaches to swimmers as far north as Cape Cod, Massachusetts. President Clinton has issued disaster declarations for areas of North Carolina due to this storm. In Japan Wednesday, nearly 6 million people participated in mock earthquake response drills. Parents placed wailing toddlers dressed in protective pads into earthquake simulators to experience what a major quake feels like. This year's National Disaster Prevention Day gained added importance after the devastation caused by that earthquake in Turkey. Iraq has announced it's planning to donate $10 million worth of oil to its earthquake-stricken neighbor, Turkey. Under the plan, Turkey would use the oil to pay for relief supplies. Iraqi President Saddam Hussein is comparing his country's contribution to the $9 million sent by the United States. When we return, for a Japanese bank and its customers, the ayes have it.
Ditech.com puts extra cash in your pocket with their new 125% second mortgage with 0 points.
Use our second mortgage to consolidate bills. Pay college tuition. Give your daughter that wedding she's always wanted.
A 125% loan means you can borrow more than the value of your home. And 0 points means you'll save a lot of money on closing costs.
That's up to $150,000 in your pocket.
Log on to ditech.com or call 1-800-71-FIXED.
If you had Sprint, you could be talking about the kids for 5 cents a minute. Introducing Sprint Nickel Nights. Now calls are just a nickel a minute every night. Switch now and catch the fever. Call 1-800-PIN-DROP.
Anne Klein Eyewear by Luxottica. What do you want people to see?
I want you to see fearlessness.
The unexpected.
I want you to see you don't need words to make a statement. Ask for the latest Anne Klein styles by Luxottica.
Picture this. Picture a life without worry, where you always feel protected and problems are quickly solved. Picture a future that's financially secure for you and the ones you love. Picture one company with the people and the experience to help you do it all. Picture Nationwide, a company changing to meet your unique needs by focusing on you. With auto, home, business, and life insurance to protect those things you hold dear. And financial services, from mutual funds to retirement planning, that help you prepare for your future. Because if you can picture it, chances are Nationwide can too. Nationwide, insurance, financial services, on your side. An equal housing opportunity insurer.
Everyone has dreams, but the dreams of our children shape the world of tomorrow. That's why at Oldie, we believe you should plan and invest early for your children's education. With our rare combination of investment advice and commission savings, Oldie can help you invest for your children's education while you encourage their dreams for the future. For your children's education and your peace of mind, call Oldie, America's full-service discount broker.
The high roads of the future.
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Art is life, and people have to see themselves in that and have compassion for that.
Art is whatever is aesthetically moving. I use in the common, ordinary phrase, the wow factor.
In el próximo milenio,
in the next millennium, the artist and humanity in general will be more conscious precisely of the fact that art transcends time.
Conciencia justamente de que el arte no tiene tiempo.
What won't change is that art comes from and stems from previous art, and there really isn't much that's new under the sun.
I see more and more people turning from the mainstream established processes of art and wanting to find alternatives, and this is one of the alternatives. It's more collaboration, more projects that involve the community, and building community and strength through the arts.
New technologies certainly will come up. Art on the internet, art made electronically, art digitally manipulated. I don't think there's any rule that tells us it should go in any one direction.
How the artists make art will determine how people consider art to be.
This Voices of the Millennium is presented by Lincoln, American Luxury.
Malaysia eased its capital controls Wednesday, lifting exit levies to allow the tax-free repatriation of international investments. The exit taxes were part of a series of capital controls imposed last year to shield Malaysian stocks and currency from the financial crisis sweeping Southeast Asia. A Japanese bank has become more consumer-focused. Takafuji Corporation is the first commercial bank in the world to use the iris scan at its automatic teller machines. A snapshot of your eye is registered with the bank, allowing you to withdraw money with a blink. President Clinton and his wife Hillary have put a bid on a house in suburban Westchester County, New York. Mrs. Clinton has all but announced she'll run for a U.S. Senate seat in New York. One requirement, a New York address. Monica Lewinsky's father went to the Los Angeles Times after receiving a second letter from the Clinton Legal Expense Trust, asking him to help pay the Clintons' legal bills. Printed in Wednesday's editions is Dr. Bernard Lewinsky's written reaction on the envelope, quote, "You must be morons to send me this letter." Coming up on WorldView, a popular children's drug, is it overprescribed?
You can't imagine the tension that Jamie was our last hope.
Phone calls like this are just too important to rush.
Their picture was huge.
That's why we always dial 10-10-321.
And then Jamie really smacked it.
With 10-10-321, our calls over 10 minutes are just 8 cents a minute, day or night. And at 8 cents a minute, we can talk as long as we want.
Grandpa wants to talk to you.
Hi, Grampy. I won the game.
Get 8 cents a minute with 10-10-321.
John wanted to tell you that Accolade Twice Daily helps control his asthma all day and all night. But we just missed him. Philip wanted to tell you thanks to Accolade, he doesn't have to use his rescue inhaler as often. But his mind is on Abby, not asthma. And Bev wanted to tell you that with Accolade, she gets out more with fewer asthma symptoms. But she just stepped away. If you use a rescue inhaler more than twice a week and are 12 or older, ask your doctor about adding Accolade or call 1-800-308-6140 for information on Accolade and a money-saving offer. Accolade is a non-steroid pill you take twice a day, every day, but it is not for sudden asthma attacks. Talk to your doctor before changing your current asthma treatments if you are nursing, taking blood thinners, or if your medical condition worsens. Side effects are generally mild and may include headache, infection, and nausea. Joy wanted to tell you that with Accolade for asthma, she gets more nights of restful sleep. But she can't right now. Accolade Twice Daily helps control asthma all day and all night.
Closed captioning is brought to you by Bell Atlantic, your guide through the wiles of communications.
Tonight in the Crossfire, should presidential candidate Pat Buchanan leave the GOP? What would it mean for the Republican Party? Tonight, 7:30 Eastern on CNN.
Now's the time to energize your mind, to jumpstart your imagination. Now's the time to get digital cable and get with the program. It's more movies, more special interest channels, and with our on-screen navigator, more convenience and more control. Connect with digital cable today and get this special offer. Discover more of the high-voltage fun, adventure, laughs, news, sports, and information that'll really put a charge in your day. Digital cable. It's a power surge for your brain.
When Tommy was a kid, he took bugs real serious. He'd catch them, study them, heck, he even got to know all the names of those creepy critters. Some of the neighborhood kids even joined in and called themselves the Creature Club. If there was one thing they knew, it was bugs. Well, over the years, they've all stuck together and do what they do best, which is bugs. Tommy still takes bugs real serious, although one thing has changed, and that is their name. They now call themselves Max Pest Control, a.k.a. the Creature Club.
Communicating with the Dead on Larry King Live tonight.
It is a commonly diagnosed condition of childhood, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. But a recent study finds it may be misdiagnosed. Here's CNN medical correspondent Dr. Steve Salvatore.
Nearly 6% of the school-age population in the United States have been diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD, a condition which is characterized by difficulties in paying attention, sitting still, and impulsive behavior. About 90% of patients with ADHD take the drug Ritalin. Ritalin is a mild central nervous system stimulant. It boosts the brain's ability to control impulsive behavior and helps children concentrate better. Once on the drug, children with ADHD usually perform better in school and relate better to family and friends. But some child care experts believe there are problems associated with this drug. Dr. Marianne Block is the author of No More Ritalin. She refers to Ritalin as kitty cocaine and contends it can cause dangerous behavior.
These drugs are mind-altering drugs. And in the case of Ritalin, it's a drug that's almost identical to cocaine. Goes to the same receptor site in the brain, causes the same high when taken in the same manner.
But doctors who prescribe Ritalin say it's safe when taken under close supervision. They say the medicine does not have long-term effects, even when started at a very young age.
After 60 years of using stimulants in children and 40 years of using Ritalin, I think we have a pretty good track record of safety in children.
Because Ritalin is a stimulant, the American Heart Association has recommended children be evaluated for heart problems before starting the medication. ADHD should not be diagnosed without a thorough medical, behavioral, and educational evaluation. Doctors should also be aware of other drugs that might interfere with Ritalin. Dr. Steve Salvatore, CNN, New York.
And thank you very much for joining us here on WorldView. I'm Bernard Shaw. The Moneyline News Hour is next.